Hello, Fearless Gamers, and welcome to another podcast here on Fearless Games. I'm Matt the Vet, and today I'm joined by...
James the Wildcard.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I hear you have power.
Yeah, I have power. I have the power.
I don't remember the theme song, so I can't back you up on that. Oh, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. I just want to take a quick moment to say, curse you, YouTube. I don't know how I end up in certain videos that I watch. I just end up there. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that it always happens when I'm about to call it a night, and I'm like, I discover a cool channel. I'm like, no, I have to go to bed. But if anybody,
you don't need sleep.
If anybody
it's
likes
overrated.
chemistry, there's something called periodic videos. It's a chemist who puts out videos. He's from the UK, I believe, or somewhere in the European area. He simply looks the chemist part. He's got a froey white hair, and he's got the glasses with side shields like permanently on them, and he's old, so he fits the chemist route, obviously. But he does cool videos, and he also does some slow motion videos, or high speed, whatever you want to call it, where like he'll pour mercury into liquid nitrogen, or put a burning coal into liquid oxygen, and then he talks about it scientifically.
Nerd.
Yes, but it's really cool. Like it's really sad of how interesting it is. And he visits places. And then there's another channel, I don't know the name of it, but I was like, whoa, you crazy. It's this lady, she's some type of scientist. I don't know if it's physicist or something.
Does she have glasses?
I don't know, because the video is of her doing scientific things at Chernobyl. Like on the ground to Chernobyl with like a Geiger counter and everything. So she's like finding all this radioactive stuff, but never once do I see her wear gloves but she picks things up and digs through it. I'm just thinking, I know you know what you're doing, but it seems like a bad idea regardless. Like, I'm not a world-class physicist, chemist, or anything like that, but if I got a Geiger counter and it's going off the charts, I'm not going to dig something up with my bare hands. Just personally, it may not mean anything, but I just feel better not having bare hand contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's that.
I was very disappointed yesterday.
Why is that?
Well, I went on down to the comic shop, walk,
yeah,
in hopes to get a white dwarf with the latest news that was leaked on the website, on the forums and such, and it was about dwarfs.
Well, everybody loves dwarves, right?
I'd rather see a magazine about cool giant robots.
Well, me too. I'm not a dwarf fan, but everybody loves dwarves.
I have their codex. I have their old codex. But yeah, the Imperial Knights are apparently coming.
Yeah, there's, as best as can be confirmed, pictures on the internet. You know, I say that because I just wait until I have it in a more like, oh, there it is, like in front of my face type of thing. But for lack of a better term, it's confirmed.
Yep. And rumor has it also that Legion of the Damned are getting a codex.
See, that is interesting to me because I've always liked the Legion of the Damned, and
I don't know much about them.
They were the Firehawks chapter. The Firehawks chapter from the Badab Wars, basically they did a jump on their big, like, mobile chapter fortress, the Rapturous Rex.
Monastery thingy?
Yeah. It was one of the biggest, like, warp capable, one of the biggest warp capable vessels of the Space Marines out there.
Okay.
And they got lost in the warp the entire chapter at this one jump. Just never showed up again. So, you know, the Bell of Lost Souls was tolled on Terra, and there was a candle lit for the chapter, and everything like that. And then the spectral, after that, I don't know exactly how long, but one, Tigerius, or however you pronounce his name, from the Ultramarines actually witnessed these guys as well, when he and a small group were being besieged by orcs, and there was basically no way they were going to be able to break out. And then these spectral, black armor-clad Space Marines just appeared out of nowhere, with like bone and fire iconography on them and everything like that, just appear out of nowhere and drive the orcs back. But they appear by wounded and downed and besieged Space Marines. So like they'll appear next to a guy, let's say he's got an arm missing or is just shot up or injured, and they'll keep him safe and blow up all the enemies around him. And then they won't say a word, they won't communicate, and then they'll vanish again. And people think it's the Firehawks, basically. Like they somehow are these Legion of the Damned, these spectral undead Space Marines, basically. Because when you look at their models, you'll see like one of their models will have a helmet blasted open, and you see just a skull underneath it. Like that's his skull. Like they're dead, but they're not. Like they're revenants.
Okay.
And that's basically the Legion of the Damned, which is why they have a special unit in the Space Marine Codex. And I've always liked them. And the unit's interesting. They get an invulnerability save that's equal to their armor save. They're slow and purposeful. They can blow things up, and they can teleport with pretty good precision onto the battlefield. That's how they show up. But I've always liked them, but there was never really a way to make a full army of them, because you have, this cool unit, and then what are you going to do? Build guys who look similar but have just regular Space Marine roles? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of lame. So I'm kind of curious to see what the Legion of the Damned Codex supplement, whatever it is, if it's true, what it's going to be. Because I would be highly tempted to do that, if not for straight Legion of the Damned, then for something of my own devising. But that's the Legion of the Damned in a nutshell for anybody who didn't know that's listening.
Yeah. And now you know.
Yeah, it's basically something like that. They're really not known. There's a couple of theories. The Firehawks are basically the unconfirmed true theory of it. And the other is that they're one of the Emperor's wills made manifest to protect his chosen. Because, the Emperor's got his groove back a little bit and can do things. And, so that is the other theory of the Legion of the Damned. But
interesting.
Basically, it's the Firehawks, for lack of a better term. But that is. Back in the day, they even had a special character who had some crazy special rule with his orb that he had. He was a sergeant. He was Centurius, and he had some type of skull orb thing that would, I forget exactly what it would do, but he was apparently kind of strong back in the day. So that was really the only special character or named character that we have official of the Legion of the Damned is Centurius. That was back in the day.
I'm more interested in the supposed book that these Imperial Knights are going to be in, because I'm curious to see if we'll get more than just the Knights in it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep, like, I, for one, would be happy if we got, like, a Mechanicum rule or something, because I want to play Mechanicum in 40k.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting proposition, really, because when you look at Legion of the Damned, okay, you can see this happening. There's nothing particularly apocalyptic about them.
Yeah.
They have a data sheet, but who cares? There's nothing per unit that's apocalyptic. You take these Imperial Knights, and they're super heavies. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with making rules for them. If they do, let's say, like a Codex Light Edition or a supplement type thing, because they're super heavies. Yeah. Which brings up some questions of, they're apocalypse only, and then this, that, and the other thing.
Well, I think the whole argument is that they're supposed to be used for escalation.
Yeah, but it's just like, still, it brings up, it's not as clear-cut as the other supplemental stuff out there, because these are especially attached from the super heavies.
Yeah. Essentially, what GW wants them to be used for may not be what the general public wants them to use them for.
Right. And the Knights look cool. They look just like, basically, Knights has always been meant to look, which has always been this style of looking. This isn't something
I think they're a little, for some reason, they seem bigger than I always imagined them.
Well, I think Knights used to have a model way back in the day from ArmorCast, and everything from ArmorCast was smaller.
Yeah. Well, no, like when I read the book Mechanicum, the way they were describing, they were in like a train tunnel, and they were in like a factory. So I wasn't expecting these things to be that tall.
Well,
I was like expecting them to be like that robot from Avatar size.
Well, here's the thing with Knights. I read that same novel, and we're talking about train tunnels and factories on Mars that build gigantic, ridiculous things. Another thing is, though, these things are kind of big. They're only piloted by one person, which makes them kind of more appealing to me, because it's more like one person in control of everything. It kind of makes... But the problem with Knights, and currently, especially the models that they have here now, is not so much their sizing, it's the sizing of 40K. In reality, they should be...
It's all off the wall.
It's all off the wall. You got Space Marines at the same size as Imperial Guards. Then you got Warhound Titans that are too small, and all of the big things are basically a little bit too small. You got a Land Raider that's almost the size of a Baneblade, but it doesn't have the same workings. You know what I mean? Like, in reality, a Reaver Titan should be way bigger than it is as a model, I feel. Just to kind of get the scaling better, the Reaver Titan should be scaled up a bit more. The Warhound should basically become Reaver Titan size, and then a Knight should be full-on Warhound size. Like, made, and there'd be a distinct difference. Like, these things are meant to... I don't know the exact size comparison to the smallest Titan being the Warhound, but Imperial Knights, they're gonna come up pretty high on the Warhound size.
Let's see.
At least they were supposed to back in the day. So...
Let's see if we can get...
Because a few Knights could drop a Warhound and pose a problem to a Reaver, even.
Let's see... What does it say here about them?
Like,
is covered and is the smallest version, is a one-man version of a Titan, and is smaller than even the smallest class of Titan. The Warhound Scout Titan used by the Knights normally deploy in squadrons of several of these machines. The most common type of Knight is about 9 meters tall.
Yeah, but...
Is the common size.
Going with what those say, it's kind of cattywampus. The thing, like, they're deployed, like, let's say as a squad of 3 Warhounds would be a squad of, like, 9 Knights in comparison. Yeah. But those Knights could drop several, could, like, pose a serious... Like, they're meant to pose a threat. They're meant to be... They're kind of there to deal with the things... Like, Titans are meant to deal with Titans. Warhounds kind of bridge the gap of dealing with non-Titans and Titans, and the Knights are really meant to deal with the non-Titans.
Yeah. Looking at the Warhammer Wiki, there's roughly is a Knight supposed to roughly be 27 feet tall, and a Warhound supposed to be roughly 47 feet tall.
Yeah, they come up to about half, sometimes a little bit taller. Yeah. But that's not represented properly.
It's not represented in the game that well.
You're not gonna get that in any war game, proper sense of scale like that.
Yeah.
But the one thing with these current models is that chain blade weapon. In one picture it looks very skinny, in another picture it looks like long enough, but it doesn't. It almost looks too delicate of a close combat weapon for something this big. You know, the Ironclad Dreadnought has a chain blade weapon that looks much bulkier and more appropriate than this thing does. Like, this looks very, like, almost too sleek, in my opinion. Like, I almost rather have, like, a nasty claw or a big hammer.
It might look different once we finally get the physical box in our hands.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
But I do agree, like, on certain angles, it doesn't look right.
No. And, like, in that one picture I'm looking at here that's up on the internet, there's a Forge World avatar standing near it.
Yep.
And in reality, well, the Forge World avatar is a great model. I'm not saying its size too big. I'm saying the Imperial Knight should be a bit taller than it is in comparison to it.
That's the one thing. Everyone always argues that the avatar from GW is too small. And I'm always going, but you are aware it's like the size of an Eldar, right? You know, it's not that big.
Well, it's the avatar. The problem with the avatar is that it's been shown in multiple sizes. Like in actual artwork, it's been shown basically.
It shows to be really tall.
Yeah, it's shown to basically be like standing Eldar size, which is basically humanoid size, to be shown to be being this magnificent avatar of a god, so making him like twice the size. And I've always liked the Forge World model better than the GW one, because I felt the GW one, for all the hype that his model is, like that rules wise, you look at the model and you go womp womp. It's like this thing's no bigger than a Terminator. It doesn't feel epic enough. You know what I mean?
No, despite my opinions on it, I do want one of the Forge World ones because it's cool looking.
It's cool looking, and to me, the Forge World one feels right. It feels like, okay, we did this ritual where we sacrificed an Exarch, and we did this full ritual thing to awaken our avatar of our god. It feels more appropriate to see that thing walking out than the GW model.
The one thing I just can't decide is if I want the one with the sword or the spear.
That is a tough call.
They both look good.
They do. They both look good, and that does make it a tough call.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's weird. The hardest decision is this one little piece of one little piece of resin. It's like, do I get
and the brass ball?
Yeah, do I get the sword or I get a spear? What do I do?
Dang it.
But no, it's a good model. The Knight is a cool model. I'm assuming it's going to be a multi-part plastic kit. I'm hoping.
Oh, instead of just one single piece?
Or instead of being resin chunks.
It's made by GW, so I would assume plastic.
Yeah, I mean, in GW, really, just as a complete tangent, complete aside, redo the Tau Commander bottle as a multi-part plastic kit instead of a fine cast. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, if theory persists, that'll happen soon, or it will go to Forge World.
Right, but I mean, that's why I'm concerned, because, well, this thing is pretty big, and chances are they're going to do it plastic, because for weight and everything like that, and all that jazz. They made the Commander model of the Tau battlesuit in fine cast, so who knows anymore. But
speaking of that, I had a lovely little funny story with the Stark Lord a couple of days ago. Rumor has it, gasp, he has free time this week. So I contacted him and I'm like, hey, you wanna get some games in, maybe play some Magic, some X-Wing, some Rage, maybe some 40K. He's like, yeah, that would be cool, play some games, some recorded, not recorded, it'd be cool. I was like, yeah, and I said, so what do you want to play? He's like, I want to do like something small in 40K because, I want to play with my Tau and all that. I was like, no, he's like, and I'd like to do, maybe some small games of 40K. And I was like, well, if you want, we could do Zone Mortalis. And he's like, I'm not sure about Zone Mortalis because I want to play my Tau. And I was like, okay. He's like, well, I can't play my commander in Zone Mortalis. I was like, yes, you can. The only thing you can't play is a Riptide and your Hammerheads. He's like, but isn't there a rule about 2+ saves and more than 2 wounds? I was like, you're thinking Kill Team, my friend.
Yeah, Kill Team and Combat Patrol.
And I was like, where did you get, I was like, don't you remember the last time we played I had a Librarian in Terminator armor? And Librarians have 3 wounds?
Yeah. No. Zone Mortalis is something very cool. In case anybody's wondering, it's cool.
You can check out the video on our YouTube page when we played one. I need another play set because I need it to be a little bigger, and I need some of the doors to make it more interesting.
Right, but it's a cool concept. It's a type of gaming that I enjoy the most. Like, as grand as Apocalypse can be, and as cool as it looks on the eye, just having like a small, desperate battle amongst hallways and rooms. I've always liked that.
What I like about it the most, very little additional rules.
Exactly.
That's what I like about it over Kill Team, because it's like, oh no, wait, no, this rule changes because of this, especially if this is happening and if the moon is out and all this other stuff. And where Zone Mortalis, it's like, if it's bigger than this, you can't use it.
Right.
And 1 or 2 extra rules that you may or may not want to use.
Exactly. And the thing is, it has some in-depth stuff, because there's Zone Mortalis, and then there's itself, and you can use that, which is basically the version 2.0 of the rules that were in one of the Badab War books to represent fighting on a spaceship. And then you can combine those rules with those if you really wanted to. But it's not that hard.
And you can combine it with 40K, too.
Exactly.
You just put the Zone Mortalis section on the front, and when you go into it, Zone Mortalis rules.
Yeah, it makes for a bit more of a thematic, almost narrative style of play when you do it in Zone Mortalis. And also, it's a great way. Zone Mortalis is a good way to get involved in playing 40K when you if you're just getting started. And let's say you're building up your HQ and 2 troop choice minimum. Well, you can take that and just go into Zone Mortalis in a small game and learn to play without really having to worry about extra rules that don't apply. And then if you can also help you expand your infantry if you want to do that first before really getting into vehicles, because vehicles don't apply there. But if you wanted to get more of your infantry, and if you were more of an infantry heavy army, you could just do Zone Mortalis all day, every day.
Yeah. It's a great thing. Like I said, the only thing I have is I need a bigger table.
Yeah.
The problem is a 2x2 square is $150.
Yes.
Which isn't bad, but still, it's like, money.
Exactly, money. It's a thing that nobody has ever.
Never.
So,
not this hobby.
I think it's worth mentioning because why not? Privateer Press announced the Cephalix.
Yep.
And
they are a merc attachment to the mercenary army.
They're pretty cool. You can almost play them just as them.
You can play them just as them, but it's one of those things where they're not officially an army, they're officially part of the merc units, which is basically you can either play as just with one or two of these units and make an army just based on that, or you could just have a small unit of those and a unit of those and a unit of those, or some other army can hire them. So they're a very versatile part of the War Machine era.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I mean, really, I feel like this is the narrative of the Cephalix, which I've always enjoyed the Cephalix, and I enjoy stuff from Crix because of the Monsternomicon, of which the Cephalix are in. And the Cephalix, really, if you're going to go with the Cephalix force, I feel you should play it heavily them. They have one of their actual Cephalix and not one of their brutes, whatever they're called, actually does things with mercenaries to beef them up. So it's almost like you want to make it a thematic force of them with some, mercenary stuff that they're mind controlling. Because that's what they do. They're almost like, what are those things from D&D?
Mind flayers.
They're like weird, steampunky mind flayers in a way.
Yeah, I could see that. That's a good comparison.
And I like that because they're kind of disturbing, and I like that about them. I like the rules for their jack but not jack things, which is a little weird, but okay, because I'm a big fan of jacks because they look cool. I'm not a big fan of fleshy things, but I like what they're going with their fleshy things. It's an interesting concept. With that being said, no, I'm not going to get involved in Pirates of Price's stuff and play them. I don't have the time, the money, or the want, really. But they're cool. They're one of those forces where I'm like, hey, I remember these things from the Monsternomicon. They were pretty scary. And now that they actually have rules and stuff that kind of seem interesting, it's cool. I have to say they did a pretty good job with them. I have no more to say than that.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you seen RoboCop?
No, I have not seen it yet.
It's out.
Interesting. I might have to see it next weekend or something.
It's RoboCop. Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Yeah. RoboCop, I've always liked RoboCop. And I do want to see this RoboCop. I just kind of forgot that it was coming out so soon with all the snow and everything.
I was really nervous until I saw Ed 209. Then I was like, okay, this movie might be good. They didn't screw up Ed 209. That's good.
There you go. Ed 209 is one of my favorite things from RoboCop.
He is such an awesome mech. That's one of the reasons why I like the Warhound, because it reminds me of him.
There you go.
I think actually someone used an Ed 209 model to make a Warhound scratch build once.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. That makes a lot of sense. But I want to see RoboCop,
cool mech.
though. RoboCop is it's to watch nostalgia happen in front of me with updated graphics, basically. That's why I want to see it. The story is not going to be exactly the same, but it's RoboCop. It's part of my childhood. Come back, just like Dread. And I don't know. It's funny that you mentioned that because I've been looking at a lot of things from when I was younger, like not like just like a VHS tape, for example.
Nah.
I was looking at those again, and I was looking at how they actually work inside of VCR, and I'm like, who thought this was something that could actually function? When you look at how it's got to take the ribbon and go through all like a jungle gym of things, and then it work and come, back to it.
And it's magnetized.
Yeah, and like I'm sure plenty of fearless gamers do and do not remember VHS.
Back when we were your age.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting.
We had to rewind to see our
Yes, and think about this, to get kind of nostalgic on you. That's a whole appliance that no longer exists, rewinders. That's a whole tech job of being a VCR repairman that doesn't exist anymore. Same thing with rewinders, same thing with TV. There's no more TV repairman. There hasn't been for a while. But, and floppy disks. I even remember an 8-inch floppy disk. I never actually had to use them myself, but I've seen people bust them out for like these old programs that they had back during high school. And the 8-inch floppy disk is gigantic. It's the titan of data storage. It really is. I used 3.5-inch floppy disks all the way up to 2003. That's what I used those, and I actually looked it up to see when they actually officially stopped selling them. Were 2009 and 2010 era is when they actually stopped making things compatible with them / making computers with 3.5-inch floppy disks in them.
I stopped playing SimCity 2000 because after my computer in high school, I could no longer get a 3.5-inch disk drive.
Yes.
And Doom. I had on floppy.
I think it's Doom and Quake, like original Doom and original Quake and stuff, which is why I like Zone Mortalis so much. Like we grew up in an era where that first-person shooting game, like Doom and stuff, was confined in hallways and rooms because they didn't have the capability to let you jump around and do open world. So I think that's why I like Zone Mortalis so much, because it reminds me of that. And those were scary games.
Yeah. I always got so confused by the fact that I never understood the concept that it took me a while to figure out that I only had the demo of Doom because I bought the game guide and it came with a demo, but it was a long demo. It went up to one point where eventually it just sent you to a mission where you can't win. You die no matter what you do. Or you can go to hard mode, which puts you in, like, the final level with none of the weapons you're supposed to have at that point.
Yeah. Like, Doom was fun and crazy and scary and, like, but yeah. I remember when people installed games of floppy disks, like, onto their computers.
And you needed, like, 5 of them.
Yeah, it was like, okay, put disc 1 in. Alright, now disc 2. Alright, now disc... And it would saw it, and then you played. And I used floppy disks, like I said, up to around 2003, 2004. Because of having the ability to use a floppy disk and actually storing things on there. Like, I only ever bought one jump drive. I have several others because StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3 came with a jump drive. My old laptop came with a jump drive, just came with it. But I actually remember buying a jump drive during college, back when you were in Hofstra.
Yeah.
And we were playing a bunch of White Wolf. And I bought this jump drive. It was a 256 megabyte jump drive. And that was, like, amazing.
Yeah.
And now
if you were real cool, you had 512.
I know, but I couldn't afford 512, so only 220.
That was expensive.
They were. And now you can't find things like under a gig. Like you'd be lucky if you find just a gig. I mean, it's
4 is the new 1.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. Like, and I feel kids today, are missing out because they're growing up and having all this awesomeness at their fingertips. Like, I feel fortunate to have grown up with Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like original Nintendo, and then seeing how it's progressed so far, and that's something that people, I think, you don't get from PS2 to PS3 or PS3 to PS4.
So, it's also like the whole, when medium changes, like for example, as you brought up Nintendo, it's considered a kid's system. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm 30 and I still play that stuff. You kids today don't know good gaming.
The kids really don't. And luckily, video gaming has this kind of nostalgia and / fake nostalgia for people who aren't old enough, where people who aren't old enough will go out and eBay Nintendo and get games and play the old games, or even Atari. Yeah, even Atari. And we just never had an Atari. My friend had an Atari, and I had Nintendo. But you play these games, and I grew up with them, so that's the nostalgia of that fact. And people go out and buy them, and luckily, if you can't find actual Nintendo or Atari, there are these third-party systems which are just built to play those games. Yep. And so people get to experience what was amazing both back then. Like, oh my God, Mario is amazing. He has no eyes, but he's amazing. It's like the game was fun. And it's just VHSs. Remember Lazer Disc? Who remember? Yeah. I know people who make it a point to collect Laserdiscs and use them. And
Laserdiscs brought up a very strong argument for me for Lucasfilms. Because if people don't know, there was a giant petition asked to get the originals on Blu-ray or DVD. And Lucasfilms replied with, that is impossible because the negatives are destroyed. And I went, well then, good sir, how were you able to give us that special edition version which had the original theatrical releases, which were just the Laserdiscs ported to DVD? And if I am correct, I believe there's a way to convert DVD to HD, and Laserdisc should be easier because it's actually a higher quality than DVD.
There you go.
Because from my understanding, that's what they did for that one release. They just took the Laserdiscs and turned them into DVDs. So they can do it. They just refuse.
Yeah, and it's weird, like people who collect, let's say, toys, or people who collect model airplanes, there are people who collect Laserdisc things, like they go out of their way to buy a movie on Laserdisc, and they have this Laserdisc player, and they go to these really specific niche type of shops that repair and work and keep Laserdisc running, and they go
those discs were huge.
They are huge. And people make it a point to keep them up and running and go out of their way to they'll call somebody. I swear they have this network. They get a phone call. We found it. I'll be right there. And then they go and they get the next Laserdisc movie that they're missing.
And all the science and education videos used to watch in school on Laserdisc. I always loved that because I was like, it's cool. You can just skip to the part you need.
Exactly. My school was not fortunate to have that. We still did the VHS, but we had a few things with Laserdisc, and it always now we're watching in high def because it's but
it was the same thing. We only had a handful of discs. Usually it was the science class that had the Laserdisc.
Yeah, and I mean, Laserdisc is one of those. It's not a forbidden fruit, but it's one of those things where it's some say they existed at one point. It's
you feel old when someone goes, "What's a Laserdisc?"
You go, "What? This was
how can you?
This was amazing." I've never actually owned a Betamax, but I've been places where I've seen Betamax being used. I was like, "Oh my God!" Back in the day when VHS
That's
was around.
One medium I've never seen.
I've seen it in person. You can't really tell the difference back then you couldn't tell the difference anyway. I wasn't really looking for a difference, but just seeing it, I was like, you're missing half your VHS. But it's because they were smaller.
Yep.
But
and they were the ones that top loaded.
Yeah, it was
that I remember.
I went down this whole nostalgia path because of YouTube. And everything like that, and I looked up VHSs to see how they worked again, and I was like, this is black magic craziness.
Okay, for people who've never seen a Laserdisc, but have seen records, they're about the size of a 10-inch vinyl.
There you go. Yeah, they were big, okay?
They were big. They were record sizes.
Yeah, and And what's the weirdest thing? Speaking of vinyl, things still come out on vinyl for music.
Yeah, we sold Justin Timberlake vinyl record. I was like, why?
Like they come out because there's people like the sound. They like the sound, the pops and the scrapes. They like it. I get.
And it's more, from what I hear, it's a pure sound.
Right. I get why, and they still sell record players, but it's funny because it's looking at music and movies and PC and video games. It's the only retro media that people still actively go out and buy. You know?
Yeah. We still sell record players.
It's kind of crazy, and people know records. When I was a kid, we had a record player, and a lot of records it was used on a regular basis. The only thing I never experienced firsthand was an 8-track. Because they didn't have that, but my parents had a record player. And people still buy record players, and you have all the music people, especially all the indie kids and all the cool they were fans of stuff before it's popular, and it's so once it becomes above ground, it's no longer cool for them. They're all about the vinyl. They're all about the vinyl. All those kids tend to be about the vinyl, and it's just it's surprising to me for that fact. And you don't see people going out, man, guess what I picked up today? I picked up a way to play a 3.5-inch floppy again. No, nobody does that. And I stored massive amounts of data on that 3.5-inch floppy.
Oh yeah.
All the time. I had a library of 3.5-inch floppies with the label on them with writing of what was on there. I don't know where that went to, and if I did, I do have the ability to play that though. I bought a special attachment for my computer that's actually in my computer that can play 3.5-inch floppy, I believe. But it's just because I wanted to be that guy.
Speaking of a lot of that stuff, you will not believe, this is really bad, sad, that I was doing. I was watching this video on the cartoon show Spawn.
Yeah.
You ever see the movie?
Yes.
You ever remember the ballroom scene where the girl's walking around and she's wearing the Spawn earrings, and they never explain who the heck she is?
I do remember that scene, yes.
I remember I finally found out who she is. She's a Spawn character named Angela. She's apparently an angel bounty hunter that's supposed to hunt down Spawn.
So why was
they threw her in as a cameo so people who read the comics will go, I know who she is!
That's one thing I never did like about some... Not that I didn't like that about Spawn. I enjoyed the Spawn movie. It was weird, but I enjoyed it.
Oh, it was a horrible film, but it's great to watch.
Right. But, that's one example of it. When movies will throw in the cameos, just oh, by the way, that character that you might have liked? Well, here's a 5-second clip of him. And then that's it. And
they have no purpose in the plot.
No purpose in the plot. You never see them again. And for some movies, that Angelic Bounty Hunter, and other movies where it's they play a key role in the universe of that character. And but that's a very important character.
And the other thing you have to think about is, wait a minute, she's a heaven bounty hunter, so why does she do nothing when he appears? If her whole job is to hunt down hell spawns and such, shouldn't that have been a big thing when he busted through the window? She just said, up, goodbye?
Well,
but the whole thing, I was
she was powdering her nose.
But I remember watching that going, why is she wearing Spawn earrings? Because they never explained who the heck she was.
Yeah. But, it's a good point you make with that, and it brings, it reminds me of this, I can't think of the movies, but other movies where it's just, hey, I know who that's supposed to be. Nobody else knows. It has no effect on the movie. They're just in there so people who are fans of this can feel, I guess,
those things exist.
Yeah. But it's just all right. I guess that was cool. But, yeah. You know what? Talking about that, because this is all going down a little nostalgia highway again, I was thinking about it. And when we look at, for example, cars, we have hybrids and electric vehicles, and technology has kind of made them much better, but the car is still a car, It's still basically, you could identify it. If you pull somebody from 08, they can identify a car as a car. They'll probably view it as some type of black magic sorcery because it's crazy, but it's still a car. Like, they can identify it.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at, like, again, kids today I don't feel like they can appreciate it, but we went from, like, Nintendo, right? So we have, like, and not even talking just handheld, how crazy handheld's gone, and even in an even shorter time. But you look at, we went from Nintendo, and now we got, like, the next-gen consoles and computers, and we got these, like, just computer graphic capability and power. It's kind of almost frightening how much it's grown by leaps and bounds in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, even in the past 10 years, we went from, okay, we got this, to, wow, we really got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, for example, we went from just a home console to now, like, with Nintendo and Sony PlayStation, and I guess Microsoft, I haven't heard them do anything with Spyglass, from consoles just being a system on the TV with a controller to multi-screen devices.
Yeah, and we have smart TVs now that can access the internet on their own, and you can download apps onto your TV. Like,
and all the Skynet conspiracists are going crazy.
They are, and they should, because Skynet's going to take over. But you know,
well, no. We have to first develop a supercomputer, but on the side make software that's actually the supercomputer. So if we happen to have a teenager who wants to blow it up, they only blow up the supercomputer, not the software that can make everything happen.
Exactly. And that's what's crazy with all this ability to store things on a little jump drive. But
Skynet on a jump drive.
But
you know, that was the one part of that movie I hated the most.
Oh yeah?
Skynet was just floating software in the internet. No! It was a frickin' supercomputer!
But now, you know, speaking of supercomputers these days are even more redonkulous in comparison to back in the day. Like the supercomputer back in the day is like what high-end people who build their own PCs have now, like in terms of capability. And now you just attach a couple of high-end machines together, and you got supercomputer computations going on. It's kind of ridiculous. But you can have smart TVs, like I was saying, that
you can plug in a little thing into your TV and make it smart.
Yeah, and if TV's already smart, you can just plug in. You know, you can bypass owning anything wise because it can do it on its own. And then you have phones that have quad core and dual quad, and like phones that are just going crazy in computation power, phones that will take anything.
Phones that are smarter than the things that brought a man on a moon.
Yeah.
And it's still not good enough.
No, like that one phone could power the old space shuttle to get us to the moon. Like in terms of being a computer for it. Like phones that would destroy computers 10 years ago in terms of capability in the palm of your hand. You have Google Glass, which is kind of an interesting thing. You have
yeah, that's like a computer in your glasses.
Yeah, you have like those dumb smartwatches, which are just dumb.
Yes, the Stark Lord has one of those.
I'm sorry, those are dumb.
The only thing I get a kick out of them for is when you get a phone call, you can pretend you're Dick Tracy.
Yes, well, that's awesome.
And for anybody who doesn't know who that is, man, did I feel old.
Dick Tracy's amazing. What are you talking about? But
you won't believe, I had one of those scenarios. I was at Brothers Grimm. I've probably told this story once, but I'm old. I forget things. Where we were sitting by the Save Me tank, and there was an old 2nd edition Carnifex. And this guy who just got started into it, he sees it and goes, "What the heck is that?" And I go, "Well, back when I was your age, that's what a Carnifex looked like." And I went, "Wait a minute, how old are you?" He went, 15. I was like, "Yeah, no, when I was your age, that's what a Carnifex looked like."
Yeah, I've had things like that. But it's
and now Elena's making fun of me.
But no, it's crazy. And there was something else I want that I can't remember because I'm getting old. From smart TV to something else, but you have you would have been back when I was a lot of people's ages that are listening, a TV was just a TV. Like,
it was a big box that weighed more than most TVs, twice their size.
Yeah, it was a big box that had vacuum tubes in it. And back when I was your age, kiddies, you were somebody if you had a plasma TV.
Oh yeah,
and that
or
was
you had a
the thing.
projection screen.
Yeah, but I mean, I had this regular tube TV with vacuum tubes and stuff in it. Like, you may not know what that is. They still sell those. I don't even know why they sell vacuum tubes anymore. I really don't. I think it's just for people who are making a movie on a budget who need to make the sci-fi lab. I think that's why they sell vacuum tubes. But
it's for anyone who's like watch old sci-fi movies with the giant light bulbs.
Yeah, basically. But I don't know if anybody remembers this anymore. It may be too politically incorrect, but the blue truck that drove by that rang a bell that would sharpen your knives for you. It was like an ice cream truck, but it was like...
We never had those here.
We had them back where I was growing up as a kid. We had them. It was a regular bell noise. It wasn't anything to be confused with an ice cream truck bell noise. It was just like somebody he took an actual bell and hit it with a hammer. That was the noise. It sounded like. It was a blue truck. And you could bring out your gardening shears, your butcher knives, your machete, whatever, anything. He would sharpen absolutely anything and everything. And it was just a blue truck. It looked kind of like a ice cream size truck size, but UPS in design. But it was the size of an ice cream truck. And he would sharpen knives. And I remember, as recent as 2005, I think I remember him coming around, but he doesn't come around anymore. But that was a guy he was the mobile knife sharpener. Like, that was a big thing.
What we had instead was the dirty diaper collector.
Ah, okay.
It was a truck that would just come and collect your dirty diapers.
And, yeah.
And he probably had no sense of smell.
Probably. But I remember those things. And I remember growing up when it was like, you know, when antennas were the way you got your DVD. Like, there was no cable.
That's how I got most of my cable programming when I was in high school. I had a antenna because the antenna wasn't designed for my TV. My TV was a 22-inch. It was huge. And I think the antenna I had was like for a 19-inch, so I couldn't get it mounted on the antenna mount on the back without it popping out of the cable. So I had to scotch tape it to the side of my TV to get my cable.
I remember before we eventually got the whole Cablevision thing back on Long Island and everything like that.
Yeah.
We had the antenna on the roof of the house. Like that antenna right by the chimney that everybody used to have. And when heavy weather would come, it would knock your TV out. And you had to wait for the storm to pass. And you
couldn't watch while lightning storms were happening?
Exactly, and you could adjust it to get better picture. I mean, most people who are listening right now probably have no idea what we're talking about. But it was I remember that, and then we had like just 13 channels.
Line cable.
Yeah, 13 channels, whatever. I remember we got the cable box, and it was like, oh my goodness, look at all these channels, and it was only like 30. Pay-per-view. Yes.
I remember those days. That was the way to get movies before they hit VHS.
No, that was the way to get movies, but
you still can do that to a degree, you know, on demand and all that.
Yeah, there still is pay-per-view still exists, which I found shocking.
Yeah.
I was like, but you weren't taken out by everything else.
Like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video.
I used to work at a Blockbuster during high school and before college. And that Blockbuster is closed now, but it did exist up to a few years ago.
I remember the Blockbusters back when Harry Potter 2, Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out. Elena didn't see the first one. So I was like, oh, wow, hey, wait, Blockbuster still exists. Let's go to them. And it was like 37 cents to rent it for a week.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, holy crap, it used to be like $20.
Yeah, for like 2 days. I remember I worked back in the height of, I guess, when things were like that, before everything got taken out by Redbox and Netflix. What's crazy is last year, I was in Oklahoma helping my sister move in for a vet school thing. And me and my dad and stuff, we drove down there and everything. And there was a mom and pop rental place for movies. It existed. And I was like, I thought you guys were extinct. Like, I didn't think such a thing existed anymore.
And for all them anime otakus out there, that's how you got your anime fix. That's how you learned about other new animes that weren't Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon, yes. Voltron, or Robotech, or for those out there, Macross.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you found out something that wasn't those shows.
Yeah. And you know what I really miss? Because it doesn't exist anymore? There was a shop that used to exist in the Bisbee Mall, Bisbee Flea Market before that closed down, and then became their own little shop. And it was for anime, for all the otaku stuff out there. It was called Shaolin Temple 2. And that's where you bought, that was the place in my area that if you were an anime fan, you went and bought your animes, because they had everything and anything there that they could get their hands on. And it was primarily VHS.
Yeah.
And they had some DVDs, but it was those subs that were official enough, but not the official subs, anything like that. And you found it, and they had it, and it was kind of not legal what they were selling, but it wasn't like a crime.
There was no copyright laws at the point.
So it was kind of okay. And those stores, it's not the only store in existence like that. There are others in other states, or there were, and there may still be. That's how you got your anime.
For me, for my area, there was one place there's two places in the mall that you could go to.
Tell me one of them Suncoast.
No, it was Radio Shack back in the day when they used to sell movies and music.
Listen, the 80s called. They want the store back.
But that used to be a place to get Dragon Ball Z for a while. And Planet Comics.
Wow.
Planet Comics was the place for Star Wars, the collectible card game, which was the game everyone collected but nobody played. And to get anime and comic book stuff. And other than that, the only place by me was Icon.
Yeah. And Fourth World.
Fourth World, I didn't know existed until I worked at Walmart and someone I knew had a car and was like, I heard about this place, let's go there. And they don't carry anime anymore, it's upsetting.
They don't exist anymore?
No, they carry comics still, but they don't carry anime anymore.
They don't? Oh, it must have really downscaled it then.
It was down to, like, you remember that, like, little tiny, where they had, like, the new release, like, little small end cap with, like, 6 movies and then the inline? It's now just that end cap.
Gotcha.
And I was ticked because I'm trying to find a show, and I could have sworn they had the volume I was missing. I found it on one store, and the one store it's been in the shipping department for like a month now, and they won't respond to my emails.
I found out about Fourth World Comics, just to go on a quick tangent, back in middle school, because I collected the BattleTech card game. Tried to play it once, couldn't figure it out, but I collected it.
Like the Star Wars one.
Yeah, I collected it, and they had it. They actually still had the cards. So back when I was in middle school, so that's when I went there and I bought basically them out of the cards. But they didn't have that many. But I don't know if they still exist, but there was a place in the mall by me called Suncoast. Suncoast was a movie and music place. And like Tower Records was. Womp womp. But
or the Virgin Megastore.
Yes, or anything like that. But the thing about Suncoast was pretty interesting. It was pretty much devoted to more on the movie side. It had very little to do with music, at least the one by me. But they actually had a fairly extensive anime section. Like they had the Ghost in the Shell, the DBZ, the Robotech, Macross, whatever. They had some Gundam. They had I think they had Tenchi. They had they had some other stuff that I've never heard of before, and it was just they actually had a pretty substantial section of it. Yeah. I don't know if they still exist, and if they do, if they even have that anymore. But I thought that was surprising because it was a big store in the mall, and usually you don't expect big stores to have anything that's kind of considered lame and nerdy. But yes, going off of that, you know what I'm kind of ticked about? What? They don't never once in high school or middle school guidance counselors and career fairs that you had to go to around then, never once did they say you could just make random crap for a living. Be a baker. They never said you could just be a baker, like something, and then eventually work, and that's how you get contracts and freelance work for special effects or making stuff for different companies. Like how Adam Savage and Jamie Heineman, they're kind of part of the more well-known ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was watching a lot of stuff with both of them talking about it, mostly Adam talking about like where you can find supplies and where you can find stuff on the cheap, and just talking about it. And I was thinking, you dropped the ball, guidance counselors. Where was this ever? This was never brought up. If you said to me, James, you can make a career out of making random crap, I would have been like, all right, let's take that major.
Making things out of crap.
Yeah, and like you could make stuff from for big companies, and you could do some special effects stuff. Like, especially let's just narrow it down to something more easy to understand, like special effects. If they told me this is what you would have to do for special effects, I would have done it. Because I never did see what film majors were all about, but instead of like analyzing film or figuring out that stuff, like give me the carpentry class, give me the salvage stuff from a dumpster class, I mean, I'm at a tech school now, and that's all fine and dandy. I really enjoy it, but they should have stuff for like tech schools for people who want to make random crap. Like learning how to, like, for example, one of the things I think a lot of people in wargaming would like to do and learn how to do, and it's not to pirate models, but it's to just expand criteria for modeling, for training, is learning how to vacuum form. Figuring that out, and I know the concept of it, and making your own vacuum former. That's a big thing when it comes to like prop making and special effects, and they can teach you that. Like, but where I've never, and I've looked at a few colleges, and I looked up random things. Short of being hired on as an apprentice or hired on as a part-time thing at a special effects studio, how do you learn those things?
Yeah.
If anybody has
YouTube.
YouTube now, but when I was back in the day, there was no YouTube.
Yep, there was no YouTube for us when we were in high school.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I got the internet in 8th grade at my house. And in high school, it was still AOL. Then we went to Net Zero because it was free with the big ad bar. Yeah. It was still dial-up. And as
Net Zero.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he does.
And when I was graduating high school, my senior year, we actually stepped it up and went to like cable internet.
Ooh.
It was like, ooh, look at the speed. But I rocked the dial-up for a good amount of time. And
oh yeah, I rocked the dial-up when I was in college.
When I was in college, I used the college internet.
No, like when I was at home, it was still dial-up at school. At home.
Right.
At home. At home, I still had dial-up. I was like, whoa! I can't wait to go back to school where the internet's faster.
But like there's no YouTube, and I don't know when Google came about.
Google came around, I want to say, near the tail end of high school. Because I remember it used to be AOL, then it was Ask Jeeves,
yes.
And then Yahoo,
yes,
and then Google came out.
Right. Because I remember before college, it was all about Yahoo when I was searching things, and
AskJeeves.com.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when if you looked up stuff, especially gaming related or stuff like that, there was a very finite amount of websites out there.
Yeah.
Like, it was easy to find what you were looking for. But the internet is a great resource that obviously the fearless gamers know about because they listen to us. This is a great use of their time. But no, seriously, like, it's a good resource that just wasn't available in the capacities available to us now back in the day of 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were kind of like, you had the internet, but it was like, why can't I find anything? And now it's like, why can't I find exactly what I'm looking for? Because you're finding everything else. But
see how it works.
it's crazy how that works. But and with wargaming especially, I remember there was like 2 forums out there maybe that were like devoted to what I was trying to look up, and then it was just the main website. And good luck if you were trying to find something BattleTech related. Good luck. It was like a myth. It was like Chupacabra on the internet. It was just, yeah, we heard about this thing called BattleTech, but you mean MechWarrior? No, I mean the BattleTech miniature game, and it's really hard to find back in the day. But yeah, I don't know how we got here, but we got here.
And it's time to go.
Yes. So
thank you all for watching. If you guys remember half the stuff we were talking about, let us know and spread the whole nostalgia love for the week.
Exactly. Like, let us know that we're not alone, and not just us, but Fearless Games is not alone for being a little aged.
just a little. We're like fine wine, though. We get better with time.
Yeah, but we're not quite at the vinegar stage yet. So
not yet.
No.
Maybe another year. So, thank you all for watching and listening. And until next time, Fearless Gamers, this is Matt the Vet.
And the Wildcard.
Saying take care.
Peace.